They told me for years there was no money in podcasting. Well, they were all wrong.
I feel like in this day and age, everybody thinks they can be an influencer or a podcaster or whatever. And if it doesn't come across your mind, you're probably not normal. And it's definitely come across my mind like, hey, why shouldn't I do a podcast? But you obviously have some background in, journalism, broadcasting, communications, that sort of thing. But how you didn't just start Ambiguous and all that. It's been a few years and you've led up to this. So how did all that happen?
How did Ambiguous start? I was unemployed. So let me go back a little further, actually. I knew I was going to become unemployed in a matter of time. And I was lucky that time lasted about 8 months before I actually got fired or let go. So I started this podcast in February 2015. So podcasting was always in my back pocket, and I started a podcast to put it on a resume to stand out. And then I had this idea for a podcast network, 3 shows on one feed and 3 individual feeds. And that turned into, okay, let's do it. Let's just do it. So I had 2 friends doing podcasts, my own podcast. I think I started a 3rd podcast or a 2nd podcast, and we kind of vaguely did it. I need a name for this. And my buddy Ricky had a blog, or has a blog, called Ambiguous Tales of an Epic Nature. And for some reason, the word ambiguous stuck out to me. I was like, ambiguous. Okay, so if I'm going to be producing podcasts for people, right, or making podcasts, people doing podcasts, like, what is a podcast? A podcast is very ambiguous in and of itself. So I came up with the name Ambiguous Network for the podcast network. And then it was Ambiguous Productions. And then once Jared and Nash came in, Jared's like, we got to change the name to Ambiguous Podcast Solutions, because he does stuff on the marketing side, Nash does stuff on the tech side. So like, all right, Ambiguous Podcast Solutions. And this was 2019. Well, that was actually late 2019. So I ended up getting hired at my current job, 9 to 5, in August of 2019. And so I was like, okay, I'm a contractor. They told me I wasn't going to work 40 hours a week, so I could still do APS. And then eventually this kind of builds. It just build and build and build. Now, I always had the idea for what I wanted, but the idea of how to do it, and then the technology, RSS feeds, networks, the ecosystem, social media, the bubbles you're seeing around you, that just took years and years of, okay, how can we make this better? How can I do this? How can I do that? Eventually, I bought this mixer over here. I ended up buying this microphone to up my quality. I'm finally, because when I first started podcasting in 2015, I always wanted to record in multi-track like I was doing at WRHU. But I didn't have the infrastructure to physically do it. So once I got this mixer, I could do that, and I could do...
I mean, they were booing Rey Mysterio. Who boos Rey Mysterio?
I can do stuff like that. I can do soundboards. Like, that's stuff I've always wanted to do. So in terms of production quality, I'm always thinking of how to upgrade. And now it's thinking, okay, I want to do different backgrounds like this. I want to end up... I could go live. I could press a button right now, and we go live. I'm not going to do that, but I could do that. I got a studio partner in Montclair, New Jersey. I'm going to start doing live podcasts once a week in studio. And just try and develop that. It's always, okay, how can I just make my content better? How can I make it towards the business? And how can I sell that to other people? It's like, if you wanted a podcast, I could do this for you. I could create a podcast just like this with similar background and graphics for you. And me doing this podcast is a proof of concept for someone else. It's an inspiration for someone else. And it's a lot of fucking fun. I do podcasting because it's fun. I do it because I like to do it, and it's fun. And I'm trying to figure out a way to make it my all-time profession. Because also, when I was working at that job I knew I was going to get fired from, I need a backup plan.
Yeah.
So the only true backup plan is yourself. So I doubled down and bet on myself. And it's still a work in progress. It's very hard. It's very frustrating. But I love it. It's a lot of fun.
So do you do full time now?
I do both full time.
Both.
I work, if you consider this work, probably 10 hours a day, if not more. Probably more. Just editing
entirely for yourself?
No, combined.
Okay.
So I'm still a contractor, so I can do both. There's no conflict
Gotcha.
of interest there. Like I'll wake up early in the morning. I stay up later. I usually stop working, period, on anything around 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. And I'm in bed by 11. So like I try and segment my life, but I work on podcasts probably just as much as I do my regular 9 to 5 job, which is also creating content, live content.